She mistakenly believed he was just an intern. What happens next is amazingly transformative. Jenna's grip tightened around her sketchpad as the fluorescent lights flickered overhead, reminding her that she was still just an overlooked junior architect in a bustling Chicago firm. She stood in an office filled with accolades and egos, consumed by a fear that had grown into an unshakable weight. It gnawed at her. She was talented, yet her contributions felt minimized, as if they evaporated into the ether without acknowledgement. Now, the bosses had dropped a new task in her lap, mentoring intern Jake. She sighed. What could she possibly impart to an eager college student whose dreams she presumed would melt into disappointment like hers had? "Can I get you anything?" she muttered, glancing at Jake as he immersed himself in a mountain of materials, with messy drawings scattered across the table. He looked like any rookie, enthusiasm masking uncertainty. Yet beneath her cynicism, a small ember of hope flickered. Maybe tutoring him could light up their dull office routine. Still, who was she kidding? She was no more than a cog in the machine, someone who made the coffee and copied plans. Nothing could ever change. The late nights of brainstorming ideas for the community center pulled Jenna further into the depths of feeling both driven and underestimated. They worked amidst ghosts of failed projects lingering in the firm's modern halls, where condescension stuck to the walls like a thick humidity. As she watched Jake throw out ideas with an infectious spark, a flicker of discontent pricked her conscience. Did she even have the right to be a part of this? It felt both exhilarating and suffocating. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Tracing lines with her pencil, Jenna fought feelings of inadequacy that bloomed like weeds during their collaborations, where her confidence battled the office's indifference. Jake's eagerness unveiled her own frustrations, stirring a cocktail of determination and despair. Could her vision hold up against the interpretations of more seasoned colleagues? Would they tear apart her and Jake's sketches before they got a chance to breathe? One evening, as shadows stretched across the room, she stumbled upon a document bearing the name Barry Harrison, Jake's father. The reality struck her like ice water in her veins. This intern was someone destined for greatness, perhaps preordained by a last name that meant legend. The very air shifted in that cramped space, filled with magic and uncertainty. Did he hide this from her, masking the pressure of familial expectation behind youthful enthusiasm? Jenna's professionalism cracked. They had dared to dream together, but suddenly she felt deceit closing in. Could she trust him? Did their progress mean anything when founded on false pretenses? Conflicted emotions surged through what felt like a sinking ship. This project, so carefully curated and nurtured, could unravel. She had to know the truth. Peering into Jake's earnest blue eyes, a familiar flicker of excitement twisted into anguish. As tension mounted and the pitch loomed, Jenna found herself spiraling into a crisis of loyalty versus ambition. To reveal Jake's lineage could shatter their fragile dynamic like glass. Would it betray their progress? Or would it illuminate the truth buried beneath disconnected aspirations? Jenna bit her lip, knowing the stakes had never been higher. A decision loomed, and as they confronted their fears on that stage, would she step into the light of honesty, or would she remain ensnared in shadows? The growing dread echoed in her chest. If Jake could mask his identity, what else was hidden in the brittle foundation of their partnership? As their futures gazed upon the stage ahead, the weight of expectation felt heavy. Their journey was far from over, yet the first step rested perilously close. Jenna's heartbeat thudded in her ears as she felt the truth about Jake's identity loom larger than the sketches they had created together. What had once felt like creative synergy now twisted into a tense web of suspicion. How had she not seen it before? Everything about him, from his innate understanding of design principles to his effortless confidence, suddenly appeared suspect. The late hours they had spent in the dim light of the office became a haunting reminder. Each laugh and shared idea now veiled in uncertainty. Was anything genuine, or merely a performance for the approval of their bosses? Jenna leaned back in her chair, flicking through sketches, recalling each moment they had built together. But now doubt seeped into those memories, tainting their innocence. "Jenna?" Jake's voice broke through her thoughts, pulling her away from the edge of her spiraling anxiety. She turned to face him, forcing a smile that barely masked the turmoil swirling within her. "Yeah?" she asked, attempting to steady her voice. "I was thinking," he paused, fiddling nervously with a pencil, "about those ideas we tossed around the other night. I'd love to get your feedback before the team meeting tomorrow." His eagerness was infectious, yet rattled her resolve. What did she really know about Jake? His blurred identity cast shadows over his brilliant concepts and confident suggestions. Gathering her thoughts, Jenna felt it was time to reframe the conversation. "Jake, I want you to be honest with me. We have to trust each other if we want this project to succeed." He looked taken aback, his blue eyes widening. "What do you mean?" "I mean," she hesitated, weighing the implications of her words carefully, "you're not just an intern. I know who your father is." The room seemed to close in around them, a charged silence enveloping the space. Jake's expression shifted, confusion giving way to an odd mixture of pride and vulnerability. "I wasn't trying to hide it. I thought it would be better if people knew me for my work, not my last name." The honesty in his response rattled her, forcing her to confront her own biases. Perhaps he was right. Perhaps the pressure she assumed weighed heavily upon him had instead ignited a motivation she wished she had. "Don't you see?" she pressed. "Expectations will follow you, regardless of your intentions. You have to be ready to fight for your place, just like I do." His determination flickered in his gaze, but Jenna could see a glimpse of doubt reflecting back. Her own voice trembled as she continued. "If we can't reveal our truths to each other, how can we expect our designs to speak? Authenticity is everything." His silence spoke volumes, and yet Jenna felt a shifting in dynamics. The professional barriers between them felt less solid. She considered Jake's resolve, his willingness to break free of the overpowering legacy of expectations. If he was willing to confront his identity, so could she. Taking a breath, Jenna continued, "I want to find a way to channel both of our strengths, but it needs to come from a place of honesty. I wasn't always supportive because I didn't see your potential. Let's change that." Jake nodded, absorbing her words. "Yeah, I think we can make something great here." As they exchanged glances, energy crackled between them, each of them recommitting to their collaborative journey. Yet Jenna felt the weight of her hesitations still clinging to her. What truly rested beneath the surface of her own identity, her past failures and disarming self-doubts? The next day would test both of them as they presented their vision to the firm. Could authenticity fuel their designs to transcend generational biases, shattering the norms that had fenced in their aspirations? Jenna's resolve to face her fears and let her true self shine, intertwining with Jake's journey to forge a partnership built on openness. But deep down, Jenna still feared the unworthy qualities she had always felt oppressed by, and the clock was ticking. With every tick, the looming presentation felt more like a precipice. Would they rise as a united front, or would the weight of expectations pull them apart, exposing too much too soon? The real test awaited them. The moment of truth was on the horizon. sending a chill racing down her spine. Jenna stared at the blank canvas of her digital design, yet the vision in her mind felt as elusive as the words she struggled to articulate. The first rays of dawn streamed through the office window, casting a soft glow on the scattered sketches around her. Each one held memories, but now they seemed more like echoes of failed ambitions than markers of potential. Tonight, they would unveil their work, yet part of her questioned if they were ready, or if she personally was ready to step into the light. She inhaled deeply, reminding herself of the conversation with Jake. It had triggered a surge of self-reflection. How could she expect him to be authentic, to shatter the expectations that pressed down on both of them, if she remained shackled by her own past hesitations? The stakes had never felt higher, and with them came the weight of her decisions. Jake sauntered over, his confident stride matching the rhythm of her racing thoughts. He tapped his tablet nervously, as though sensing the electric tension in the air. "Hey, Jenna, I made some adjustments to the designs based on our chat," he said, his voice tinged with a mix of excitement and apprehension. She offered a tentative smile as she turned to face him, trying to suppress her doubts. "Let's take a look." As they delved into the revisions, Jenna forced herself to focus, not on Jake's surname, but on the brilliance of their collaboration. The design transformed under their combined efforts, a vibrant embodiment of their shared vision. Each critique brought forth ideas, their exchanges fueled by an unspoken commitment to authenticity. There was something liberating in stripping away layers of assumption, both about Jake and herself. Yet, buried beneath the exhilaration lay shadows of her insecurities, reminding her that presenting the new concept also meant revealing fragments of her own identity. As the clock ticked closer to their meeting, anxiety twisted in her stomach. Jenna buried her hands into her pockets, clenching tissues as she stared at the window. The firm was known for its brutal standards, and even with Jake's pedigree combined with their hard work, doubt began festering within her once more. What if their passion didn't resonate? What if her voice shook while presenting? Would it be seen as weakness? "Jenna," Jake spoke softly, pulling her back to the moment. His expression was earnest, concern etched across his features. "You okay? You're not looking like the confident powerhouse I know." Her mind raced, feeling exposed. What if they don't appreciate the authenticity we've woven into this project? What if my past undermines everything we've built? The worry boiled over, reflecting her internal conflict. She was venturing into vulnerability, a territory foreign yet crucial for growth. Jake stepped closer. "Then they don't deserve our vision. We've poured our hearts into this. They need to see the real us. That's what will set us apart." His words struck a chord deep within her, challenging her fears head-on. Jenna took a breath, contemplating how much they had both risked in this partnership. If they were to argue for their designs, they also needed to defend the authenticity behind them, their histories, their fears, their ambitions. "Okay, let's own this," she declared, the flicker of determination igniting in her chest. "If we're going to present, let's do it fully, as ourselves, no masks." "Exactly," Jake replied, a newfound confidence radiating from him. "Let's make them see us, not just the designs. It's time to break the mold." The next hour felt like both an eternity and a heartbeat as they prepared. Together, they rehearsed their narrative, who they were beyond their roles, the stakes that hung on their vision. The room throbbed with unspoken promise and unacknowledged fears. Finally, just before entering the conference room, Jenna took a moment to steady her heart. She looked at Jake and saw the same tumult of emotions mirrored back at her, but there was something more, a spark of resilience that she hadn't seen before. "Let's go show them who we are," she said, a newfound clarity anchoring her voice. As the door opened, Jenna stepped forward. The moment of truth loomed just ahead, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she was ready. Ready to confront her insecurities, ready to embrace her potential. But just as the lights dimmed and their presentation began, Jenna noticed a familiar figure entering the room, someone from her past she had not expected to see. Her heart sank, confronting her once again with the shadows of self-doubt and unsaid words. Would this be the catalyst for her transformative journey, or an opportunity for old fears to resurface? Jenna's heart raced as she recognized the figure slipping into the conference room, the sharp-cut silhouette of Lucas, her former mentor. His reputation preceded him, a blend of brilliance and brutality that had haunted her early career. She fought against the rush of memories flooding back, the voice of self-doubt whispering that his presence might unravel all she had built. As she locked eyes with Lucas, she felt the weight of her past decisions looming large. Would he judge her? Would he see through the confident facade she was trying to maintain? The pulse in her ears drowned out the introductory remarks from the panel, and she could feel the tides of insecurity threatening to pull her under. Jake, still unaware of the storm brewing within her, nudged her. "Hey, focus, we've got this." His words were a lifeline, tugging Jenna back to the reality of the moment. As their presentation unfolded, Jenna felt the clamoring tension in the room, each gaze locked onto the projected designs. She spoke passionately about their artistic choices, weaving in their authentic narrative, the excitement tinged with newfound sincerity. But every few moments, her attention would drift back to Lucas, watching closely, those dark eyes assessing her with a scrutiny she could hardly bear. When it came time for Jake to share the technicalities behind their work, Jenna found solace in the conviction radiating from him. His confidence reminded her of the leap she had taken alongside him, a partnership built on honesty and the vulnerability they both embraced. She fought to remember that strength, to harness it against the doubt that clawed at her. As Jake concluded, he turned to Jenna, prompting her to present the closing thoughts. She cleared her throat, centered herself, and gazed across the room. The words came before she could second-guess herself. This project isn't just a collection of designs. It reflects the journey of two individuals who've learned to embrace not only our skills, but our vulnerabilities. We believe that art should tell a story, our story, unfiltered, authentic, and resilient. For a fleeting moment, the tension ebbed as she noticed nods of appreciation flitting across the panel's faces. Yet in the corner, Lucas remained impassive, his expression inscrutable. The idea of his judgment loomed large, a force she battled internally while striving to communicate her genuine ethos. When the presentation concluded, Jenna's nerves were still tight as they fielded questions. She felt an exhilarating pull of energy from both the panel and Jake, who fielded inquiries about their creative process with ease. But Jenna still sensed the shadow of Lucas, that eerie familiarity unsettling her composure. "Jenna," one of the senior executives said, capturing her attention, "you mentioned embracing vulnerability during your presentation. Can you talk more about that? What led you to this belief?" The question hung in the air, and Jenna felt cornered. Would revealing too much expose her weakness? But perhaps this was the moment. She gathered her thoughts, reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. "Embracing vulnerability has been a necessary step in my growth," she began, her voice steady, surprising herself. "For years, I struggled to conform to expectations, fearing that showing doubt or uncertainty would undermine my credibility. It was making me stagnant. Working alongside Jake, I realized that our imperfections, our backgrounds, add depth to our creativity. It's not just about the designs, it's about who we are as people, and I believe that authenticity is powerful." The room buzzed with energy, but all Jenna could focus on was Lucas, who shifted slightly in his seat, now watching her with more intensity. Gone was the look of indifferent observation. It was now replaced with an intriguing mix of curiosity and contemplation. As the discussion progressed, Jenna perceived a shift within herself. She was no longer simply defending her ideas. She was staking a claim on her identity. Each word she spoke seemed to strip away layers she had long hidden behind. Could it be that Lucas, the very person she had once sought validation from, now served as a catalyst for her evolution instead of a reminder of her past? When the meeting finally ended, Jenna felt a mix of elation and dread. They had delivered their vision, perhaps not flawlessly, but with an undeniable authenticity. Yet as she looked to Jake, ready to celebrate, her eyes darted back to Lucas, who was rising from his chair. Their eyes locked once more, and in that brief moment, Jenna sensed something had shifted. Lucas approached her, and Jenna braced herself for his words, her heart pounding in anticipation. Would this encounter reaffirm her newfound strength, or would it expose lingering insecurities all over again? Lucas's presence loomed larger. With each step he took toward Jenna, she fought to steady her breath, hyper-aware of the fragile confidence she had just forged through their presentation. Did he sense her shift, or was he simply enjoying the spectacle of her struggle in that moment? "Jenna," he said, his voice calm but tinged with an undercurrent of authority that sent shivers racing down her spine. "Your presentation was unexpected. You've changed." His words hung in the air, inviting her to either defend her transformation or shrink back into the familiar shadow of self-doubt she had fought so hard to escape. Jenna clenched her fists, feeling the surge of determination mingling with uncertainty. "I've learned to be honest about my journey," she said, choosing the high road. "Not just with others, but with myself." The corner of Lucas's mouth quirked slightly. "Honesty has its merits, but it can also expose you to vulnerabilities. You realize that, don't you?" His gaze was piercing, as if he were peeling back layers of her resolve. Jenna felt a choice unfurling before her: engage in a battle of wits, or let the remnants of her fear suffocate her words back into silence. "I do," she replied, her voice steadying. "But I've realized that concealing who I truly am only served to limit me. Embracing those vulnerabilities has opened up new avenues of creativity and connection. It's not something I'm afraid of anymore." Lucas regarded her for a moment, his eyes flickering with something she could not decipher, perhaps approval, or maybe incredulity. "Interesting," he mused, the tone lingering between curiosity and challenge. "And what happens when those vulnerabilities are weaponized against you?" Her throat tightened. His question was a hit, a reminder of her scars, but this time she held her ground. "Then I'll turn them into strengths. My past experiences have shaped me, but they don't define me. I'm more than what I was, and I intend to keep growing." Lucas's expression softened slightly, but Jenna couldn't afford to misread the moment. She had no idea what kind of mentor or tormentor he might still be. "Growth often requires confronting uncomfortable truths," he said. "So tell me, do you see that as the only way forward?" The probing nature of his questions pushed Jenna to think deeper, to weigh her thoughts with precision. Confrontation can drive growth, yes, but growth also demands collaboration and trust. I've learned that I can't do it all alone, and that's okay. Lucas tilted his head, as if her response had piqued a long-buried intrigue. Admitting her reliance on others, particularly Jake, felt liberating. Aligning with him had been a choice born from camaraderie and respect. They empowered one another, a revelation that resonated with the audience, even if Lucas had yet to grasp that connection. "Collaboration is crucial," he acknowledged slowly, "but be wary. Teams can foster creativity, yet they can also breed complacency if not managed properly." Spurred on by the unexpected depth of their exchange, Jenna seized the moment. And mentors can strengthen or stifle ambition, depending on how they engage. I'm finished with external validation. It's time for me to validate myself. Her pulse quickened. As she spoke, she felt the tides of her self-assurance swell. Lucas shifted, an inscrutable expression on his face, but for the first time, Jenna sensed an opening, a possibility of mutual respect. There was gravity in their interaction, signaling a turning point she could not have foreseen. "There's more to you than I initially perceived," he finally admitted, his tone measured. "You've made choices that reflect growth, Jenna. I'll be watching you." With that, he stepped back, and Jenna felt the fog of apprehension lighten slightly. This exchange had been a test of her mettle, and while she didn't know his next move, her resolve had deepened. As Jenna turned to share the moment with Jake, her mind buzzed with newfound clarity. Lucas, while an intimidating figure from her past, could just as easily become an unexpected ally, or even a challenge to keep her on her path of development. The fracture between mentor and mentee shifted. It was now about her own narrative and the strength she found in her authenticity. Still, as she absorbed the excitement of their success, curiosity gnawed at her. What did Lucas genuinely want from her now? The questions lingered, pulling her deeper into a journey fraught with both opportunity and uncertainty. What awaited her as she continued to carve her identity in this unpredictable landscape? The exhilaration of the moment with Lucas dissipated as Jenna joined Jake, who was waiting just a few feet away. He wore an expression of both pride and curiosity, and she could sense the silent question hanging between them. What had just happened? "That was something else, huh?" Jake said, breaking the tension. His voice had a buoyancy that made it difficult for her to hold on to the weight of her own uncertainty. "Yeah, something," Jenna replied, forcing a smile. She felt the adrenaline ebbing, replaced by the gravity of the conversation with Lucas. What had begun as a small victory now contained the seeds of deeper conflict and possibility, fueling both her ambition and her apprehension. "Lucas gave you props? That's huge!" Jake beamed, pulling her toward a quieter corner, away from the bustle of their colleagues starting to disperse. "I saw how you handled him. It was like watching a pro." Jenna appreciated Jake's support, but felt like she was teetering at the edge of a precipice. "Do you think he really meant it? I can't help but wonder if he's just setting me up for something." Jake frowned, assessing her words. "If anyone's starting to recognize your potential, it's him. You've changed. Embracing your journey, it's powerful. But you need to stay alert, be ready for whatever's next. Some people, they thrive on manipulation." The thought of being manipulated twisted in her stomach, but it resonated with the idea that honesty could indeed reveal weaknesses. She realized she had to chart her own course, away from the familiar currents of self-doubt. There was a path ahead shaped not merely by the presence or opinions of others, but by her own choices. "What's your next step?" Jake inquired, tilting his head, his eyes gleaming with interest. "You've got to have a plan now." Caught off guard, Jenna hesitated. She had pushed so hard toward this moment, wanting to showcase her growth, but hadn't fully mapped out what came after. "Honestly, I have no clue. I feel like I'm standing on a cliff, ready to jump, but what if I land in the wrong place?" Jake nodded, understanding the dilemma. "What do you think is holding you back? Is it Lucas, your past, yourself?" The question caused her to reflect. What was truly holding her back? She closed her eyes briefly, searching for the root of her apprehension. "Lucas is part of it, but I think it's deeper. There's this silly part of me that still fears I'll revert to how I was, the quiet one, the sidelined observer." "But you just commanded attention in that presentation," Jake pointed out. "What you've shown today is that you can handle this. Own it." Jenna inhaled, the conviction in his voice impressive, but the demons in her mind clawed back, whispering doubts. She opened her eyes and centered her focus on Jake. "What if my growth isn't stable? What if it's just a phase?" "No growth is linear," he countered firmly. "You'll have your ups and downs, but you've already proven you can confront your truths. Take that and run with it." For the first time, Jenna considered the possibility that she could embrace the journey without the burden of perfection weighing on her shoulders. Perhaps embracing her imperfections would generate even greater resilience. As they walked through the now emptying room, Jenna glanced back toward Lucas, who stood surrounded by several colleagues, his posture confident and commanding. A thought struck her. What if she approached him, initiated a different kind of conversation? "Jake," she said suddenly, halting in her tracks, "what if I reach out to Lucas, ask him for guidance instead of waiting for him to reveal his intentions?" Jake's brows lifted in surprise. "That's bold, but I like it. You'd be taking charge of your development instead of letting it happen to you." Her heart raced at the idea. Was she truly ready to assert herself in front of Lucas again? But the thrill of potential outweighed the fear. To construct her narrative, even with obstacles, might be the challenge she needed. "Okay, I'm going to do it," Jenna declared, surprising herself with her confidence. The prospect was daunting, but it also felt liberating. "Just make sure you're ready for whatever answer he gives. He might not be the ally you hope for," Jake warned. Jenna nodded, steeling her resolve. The moment felt transformative, an opportunity to shape her future. But as she prepared to step toward Lucas, she felt the heaviness of doubt swirl within her. What if he didn't see her as a worthy mentee, but rather as a threat to his own authority? The questions tightened around her throat, and she squared her shoulders against the internal storm. With clarity breaking upon her, Jenna moved resolutely forward. The time had come to face whatever shape her next chapter might take. No longer waiting for validation, she would carve her own path in a terrain so unpredictably alive. As Jenna approached Lucas, her heart pounded in her chest, eager to connect, yet tethered by doubt. She could feel the energy in the room shifting, a blend of camaraderie and professional expectations surrounding them. And here she was, taking what felt like a monumental leap, not just toward Lucas, but into a new phase of her career. "Lucas," she called out, her voice steady despite the quickening of her pulse. He looked up, eyebrows raised in mild curiosity as his colleagues continued their discussions. The moment was fraught with tension. She fought the urge to retreat. "Well, if it isn't our rising star," he greeted with a hint of a smile, one that hinted at both recognition and challenge. "What can I do for you?" "I wanted to see if you'd be open to discussing my presentation," she began, carefully choosing her words. "You made some comments that really resonated with me, and I'd like to understand your perspective better. Maybe get some guidance on how to proceed?" His gaze sharpened, assessing her request. "Interesting approach," he said, feigning nonchalance. "Most people just want to bask in the afterglow of compliments. Why do you care about my feedback?" The question struck her like lightning, exposing the core of her insecurities. "Because I want to grow," she replied, surprising herself with the strength of her conviction. "And I believe genuine feedback is crucial for that growth." There was a brief silence as Lucas studied her, the flicker of amusement crossing his features before he leaned back slightly, contemplating her words. "Growth isn't just about seeking advice when it's convenient," he stated, his tone shifting from playful to serious. "It's about actively seeking discomfort, challenging your own boundaries. Are you prepared for that?" Jenna felt a surge of clarity. This was not just a test of her professional ambition, it was a challenge to her emotional foundation. "I am," she answered defiantly, her earlier hesitation replaced by a burgeoning resolve. "I want to push past not just my comfort zone, but also the fear of failure." Lucas nodded slowly. "All right, I'll provide you with some honest feedback, but it may sting, and you'll need to take it to heart if you want to prove you're serious about this." "Sting? I can handle it." The word slipped from her mouth with awe-inspiring certainty, as Jenna felt the weight of her earlier self-doubt begin to lift. "Good," he said, his tone softening just a fraction. "Let's set up a time to meet next week. But know this, I give my time sparingly. If I decide to invest in you, I expect the same intensity in return." Absolutely. The deal felt transformative, like a lock clicking into place. It was clear that she was stepping into a new phase, and it was exhilarating. Meanwhile, a nagging voice whispered caution in her thoughts. What if she wasn't ready for this level of accountability? Later that day, as Jenna sat at her desk, she couldn't help but reflect on the exchange. The memory of Lucas's penetrating gaze lingered, igniting a mix of excitement and trepidation within her. Perhaps this was her moment, a threshold that divided the person she had been and the professional she aspired to be. As the afternoon sun filtered through the window, she began to draft a plan for her next conversation with Lucas, eager to confront the challenges ahead. But a new fear emerged. Her success depended not solely on Lucas's mentorship, but also on her ability to embrace and tackle every critique with resilience. Would she be able to transform the sting of his words into fuel for her growth? The answer was uncertain, yet the anticipation of what lay ahead made her pulse quicken with an intoxicating blend of fear and determination. As she looked out at the bustling office, Jenna realized she was no longer just a participant in this professional arena. She was taking charge of her own narrative, ready to face whatever Lucas threw her way. What other revelations awaited her in this unpredictable journey of self-discovery? The horizon loomed vast, with both promise and peril, and she sensed that the real challenges were only just beginning. Jenna arrived at the office the next week, heart racing with a unique blend of enthusiasm and trepidation. The meeting with Lucas loomed in her mind, the anticipation buzzing through her veins like electricity. She found herself arriving early, far earlier than necessary. Instead of diving into her tasks, she prepared. Sitting at her desk, she repeatedly reviewed her presentation notes, mentally rephrasing points she anticipated Lucas would address. What could he possibly find wrong? What insights would push her limits? As the hour drew nearer, she felt her nerves evolve from anxiety into determination. This was not merely a discussion, it was an opportunity to open a door she'd previously thought was bolted shut. She began to think about her previous work, the presentations that had not fully met her expectations, the moments where she had shied away from speaking up, all instances that painted a stark picture of her growth trajectory. When Lucas finally arrived, he wore a skeptical look, inspired perhaps by her earlier self-assuredness. "You seem ready," he said, folding his arms. "But readiness is just the beginning." "I've prepared," Jenna replied, refusing to let her voice tremble. "I've taken your comments to heart and am ready for the constructive feedback." He nodded, and Jenna felt the weight of expectations shift palpably in the air. They moved to a small conference room where the stark lighting illuminated her determination beneath the veneer of professionalism. As the discussion unfolded, Lucas dissected every slide of her presentation with precision, his feedback poignant and unyielding. "Your data is strong, but your delivery falters. You prioritize technical explanation over connection. Why should your audience care?" She felt each critique aimed like arrows, but instead of recoiling, she leaned into them, her mind reeling yet resolute. "Because I believe in the potential impact," she articulated, her voice steady as iron. "And because I want to make that connection." "Bold," he remarked, pausing. "But how willing are you to change, not just words, but your approach? You can't connect without vulnerability." His words forced Jenna to confront the real elephant in the room, her fear of opening up. What if her audience laughed, or worse, dismissed her? Struggling to articulate this, Jenna discovered a spark of self-awareness. "You're right," she confessed. "I've built walls, thinking they would shield me, but instead they hold me back." Lucas uncrossed his arms, revealing a flicker of respect. Acknowledging that is the first step toward dismantling them. If you want them down, you'll need to embrace both the discomfort of vulnerability and the potential success of authenticity. Every piece of advice he threw at her resonated, swelling within her. Here was a man who demanded more than mere performance. He sought genuine transformation. Instead of just surviving through the meeting, Jenna found herself thriving, absorbing insights that ignited a fire within her. As they wrapped up, Lucas turned to her. "Let's reset the approach and meet again next week. But remember, growth isn't just about implementing feedback, it's about evolving beyond your boundaries." "Count on it," Jenna responded, feeling the rush of promise coursing through her. She was no longer simply pursuing mentorship. She was actively demanding her own evolution. But despite the exhilaration, another deeper realization crushed in on her. The accountability Lucas expected was merely the tip of the iceberg. How far was she genuinely willing to reconstruct her methods and her mindset? With that thought simmering in the back of her mind, she stepped out of the conference room and back into the office. Each step echoed a newfound sense of purpose, yet simultaneously alarmed her at the enormity of the changes she faced. As her colleagues buzzed around her, she knew this was merely the beginning. Could she truly embrace the messy parts of her identity, a journey that demanded more than execution? Only time would tell if she could navigate the storm of personal evolution that awaited her. Would she rise to the occasion, embracing each challenge head-on, or would hesitation hold her back yet again? The week unfolded with an intensity Jenna had not anticipated, each day presenting new challenges that echoed Lucas's stark assessment. As she meticulously prepared for her follow-up presentation, the weight of his expectations loomed larger in her mind, pushing her to refine not only her slides, but also her approach to connecting with her audience on a human level. Jenna started each morning with a 10-minute ritual of deep breathing, attempting to quell the grip of anxiety tightening around her chest. The act of inhaling slowly, exhaling deliberately, became her anchor. She realized, however, that the true work lay beyond mere mindfulness. It demanded action. She knew she had to shift her mindset, transitioning from self-doubt to fearless engagement. During lunch breaks, she huddled with a few colleagues, seeking their opinions on her presentation. "I need your authenticity," she implored. "How do you connect with our clients? What makes you genuinely resonate?" Their responses were varied, insightful, and often unpredictable, revealing facets of her coworkers that she had previously overlooked. With every exchange, Jenna felt her walls slowly begin to crumble, cementing her resolve to embrace not just vulnerability, but also collaboration. Yet, as invigorating as these moments were, doubts persisted. The night before the presentation, she found herself pacing the floor of her apartment, rehearsing lines that felt more rehearsed than genuine. Would laughing scars from her past resurface? If they did, could she stand in that spotlight without faltering? As the clock ticked toward midnight, she forced herself to confront the panic laced through her thoughts. "This isn't just about them," she whispered to herself in the mirror. "It's about me. It's time to own my narrative." Fully aware of the stakes, Jenna decided to embrace a new technique she had learned about storytelling, infusing her personal journey into her presentation. She invested hours crafting narratives that intertwined her professional growth with poignant moments from her life. By blending vulnerability into her data-driven slides, she aimed to foster genuine connection. It was no longer just infographics, it was a palette of experiences that defined who she was as a professional. On the day of the presentation, the office felt different, the air thick with anticipation, both palpable and transformative. As she prepared to enter the conference room, Lucas caught her eye and offered a subtle nod, an affirmation that sparked confidence. Stepping inside, Jenna faced her audience, a mix of senior executives and colleagues, and felt a surge of adrenaline. With each slide that flicked by, she told her story, her voice steady yet imbued with emotion. She articulated challenges, triumphs, and that fundamental need to connect. The room was silent, the kind of silence that demanded engagement, and Jenna dared to fill it with her authentic self. As she concluded, slightly breathless and exhilarated, the response was overwhelming. Applause surged around her, but it was one comment that struck her most. "Thank you for sharing your story. That was moving," one executive remarked. His acknowledgement felt like a breakthrough, not merely for her presentation, but for her professional identity. Walking back to her desk, Jenna reveled in more than the validation of her efforts. She had begun to reshape how she viewed her work and connections with others. Yet, beneath that wave of excitement lay an undercurrent of uncertainty. Could she repeat this? Would this newfound authenticity hold in the face of real adversity? That evening, lost in thought, she received a message from Lucas. "Impressive work today, but the real test begins now. Let's dig deeper next week." Jenna folded her arms at her desk, pondering his words. What depths were yet to be uncovered, and how far was she willing to go to redefine her experience in this field? The journey had merely begun, yet every question felt loaded with promise. And somewhere inside her, a resolute conversation ignited. What would breaking through her own barriers demand of her next? The days that followed Jenna's presentation felt transformative in every sense. Her confidence solidified with each interaction, her heart no longer tethered to the chaos of self-doubt. As she dove deeper into her projects, she embraced conversations with her colleagues, often initiating discussions about collaboration and creativity. Each dialogue became a stepping stone toward establishing her presence not just as an architect, but as a formidable voice within her firm. After weeks of diligent work, it was time for her next meeting with Lucas. Every detail mattered. She crafted her presentation meticulously, ready to showcase her evolution. Arriving early, Jenna took a moment to gather her thoughts, reflecting on her journey from feeling like a mere cog in the machine to becoming a respected contributor. When Lucas entered the conference room, his demeanor was as sharp as ever, but she detected something different, an inkling of acknowledgement lurking behind his steely gaze. "Ready?" he asked, his tone almost teasing. "More than ready," Jenna replied with newfound assurance. She clicked through her slides, each one intricately tied to her growth and the stories that accompanied it. As she spoke passionately about design philosophies infused with personal narratives, she noted Lucas absorbing her words, his eyes narrowing in enthusiasm. "Good," he interjected during a pause. "You're evolving, but let's dig deeper. How can you leverage your own vulnerabilities to drive this team forward?" His question caught her off guard, yet it ignited a spark within her. Jenna realized that the journey wasn't solely about her personal triumphs. It was about how she could scaffold her growth within her team, fostering an environment where others felt inspired to showcase their authentic selves. "I believe creating a culture of openness will not only enhance our designs, but will strengthen our team dynamics," Jenna responded, the clarity of her voice surprising even herself. "I want to initiate workshops where we can explore our narratives, share and learn from each other's experiences." Lucas's brow furrowed, impressed. "That's ambitious, and if executed, your ideas could reshape the foundational dynamics of this firm. But are you prepared for potential resistance?" "Absolutely," she declared, no trace of hesitation lingering. "Real progress invites discomfort. If we can confront our fears together, we can build something exceptional." As they dissected her plan, Jenna felt a sense of camaraderie spark between them. She understood Lucas was not just a formidable mentor, he was now a potential ally, someone who recognized the power of vulnerability and faced its challenges head-on. After the meeting, as they stood to leave, Lucas turned to her, a rare glint of respect gleaming in his eyes. "I underestimated you," he admitted, "but if you're to lead this initiative, prepare yourself for the storms ahead. Authenticity can attract creative allies, but it can also expose you to criticism." "Let them come," Jenna replied, invigorated by the prospect. "I'll use every challenge as a stepping stone, and I'll be sure to carry others with me." Leaving the meeting, Jenna felt like she had conquered more than just her career fears. She had established herself as a capable leader, ready to pave the way for others. The daunting weight of expectations now felt like wings mounted on her back, propelling her forward. In the following weeks, Jenna launched the workshops, unleashing a torrent of vibrant discussions among her colleagues. They shared fears, ambitions, and breakthroughs, creating a sense of unity that had long been absent. Her colleagues began to view her not just as a mentor, but as a guiding force, someone who encouraged them to boldly embrace their aspirations. Each session reinforced her belief in collaboration, showing her the strength embedded in vulnerability. Jenna had not only turned her insecurities into a catalyst for innovation, but had also generated a sense of belonging amongst her peers. One afternoon, while reflecting on a particularly insightful session, Jenna received an unexpected email from the firm's leadership. They invited her to address a larger audience, sharing the impact her workshops had created. Excitement rushed through her. This was the recognition she had craved, an acknowledgement of her hard work and evolution. As she prepared for the presentation, Jenna stood before the mirror, summoning the confidence she had nurtured. "You did this. You earned this," she whispered to her reflection, ready to showcase her growth not just as an architect, but as an individual who had embraced her journey. On the day of the presentation, standing at the podium, Jenna felt a surge of gratitude wash over her. She framed her speech around her professional transformation and the core value of authenticity. With each word spoken, the weight of those years spent in the shadows disappeared, replaced by the warmth of connection and mutual respect. "And if I can inspire even one person to embrace their journey," she concluded, her voice crisp with conviction, "then I've accomplished more than I ever thought possible." The applause that followed wasn't just validation, it felt like acknowledgement of collective vulnerability. As she stepped down, Lucas caught her eye, and for the first time she recognized a genuine smile on his face, one that reflected pride and camaraderie. Jenna had conquered not only her insecurities, but had transformed her role within the firm. She emerged as an architect able to build bridges between her own identity and the vast potential in others. She understood that growth wasn't merely personal, it extended into the lives she touched, a ripple effect of authentic connection. As she basked in the applause, she felt like she had not just achieved a professional milestone, but had carved out her true place in a world that once seemed opaque. The narrative she forged was hers alone, full of triumph, resilience, and undeniable courage. Now, as she stood poised to continue her journey, Jenna knew this was just the beginning. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.